After parting ways with Zbigniew, we continued the journey as just the two of us. The weather was perfect, so the decision came quickly. Back to the Transalpina, this time without rushing, and with hopes for clear, unobstructed views. For a change, a few dozen kilometers past Sibiu, Kalimoto guided us onto Road 106E, and it turned out to be a perfect choice. Excellent asphalt, an empty road, plenty of bends, and beautiful scenery all around. Exactly what we had been looking for. Before long, hunger caught up with us, so we stopped for local food. No chains, no overthinking, just the way we like it on the road. Mariusz went for a traditional Romanian polenta, mamaliga, in a generous portion, served with thick, creamy sour cream and melted, stretchy cheese. I ordered grilled mamaliga, clearly marked by the grill, crispy on the outside and soft inside, also served with sour cream. No frills, no marketing, just pure regional food, tasting exactly right after several hours on a motorcycle. This time, the Transalpina showed itself from its very best side. Perfect weather, crystal clear visibility, and breathtaking panoramas as far as the eye could see. The ride was pure pleasure, smooth, relaxed, and deeply satisfying. After descending from the Transalpina, near the village of Baia de Fier, we found a spot and set up our tents for a wild camp. Silence, calm, and the fatigue after a full day of riding did their job. We slept like children. In the morning, still half asleep, we rode to the first petrol station to grab a coffee and take our time getting ourselves together before hitting the road again. A short stop like that always sets the tone for the day. After coffee, we continued toward the Serbian border, passing through the town of Drobeta Turnu Severin. From that point on, the route became truly special. We were riding along the Danube, which stayed with us for kilometer after kilometer. The river was wide and calm, and the views on both sides were breathtaking. Rocky cliffs, lush greenery, and water creating an incredible atmosphere. The border crossing itself is also located right on the Danube, which only adds to the charm of the place. As we crossed the border, it felt like more than just a change of country. It marked another important stage of our Balkan journey. After entering Serbia, the first few kilometers were quite a surprise. The road conditions, to put it mildly, left a lot to be desired. Uneven surfaces, patches and sections where you really had to stay alert. On top of that, there were wild roadside dumps, which unfortunately didn't make the best first impression. Fortunately, the farther we rode, the more things clearly improved. The roads got better, and the towns we passed through looked neat and welcoming, with normal traffic and a local vibe that quickly made up for the rough start. One particularly interesting detail were the cemeteries. Often located right next to the road, they looked almost like open-air exhibitions. Rows of gravestones clearly visible from the route, well-maintained and distinctive, very different from what we're used to. It was one of those small details that perfectly shows local character and stays in your memory for a long time. After riding several dozen kilometers through Serbia, we were already very close to the Bulgarian border, so we spontaneously decided to stop there for lunch. At the border, a customs officer recommended a place in the town of Vidin, located right on the Danube. It turned out that the restaurant was set on a barge, moored to the riverbank, which in itself was a great and rather unusual experience. Before sitting down to eat, we took a short walk through a very charming riverside park, soaking in the calm atmosphere of the place. The food itself was very good, fresh, tasty, and perfect for a break during the journey. The Danube looked absolutely stunning. Wide, majestic, calmly flowing, with light and greenery reflected on the water's surface. It was one of those views that makes you want to stop for a moment and simply take it all in. After lunch, we headed south and crossed back into Serbia, continuing our Balkan route. After crossing the border near the town of Zaječar, we headed toward Nice. The road was very pleasant and smooth, and, most importantly, the temperatures became much more bearable than earlier in Bulgaria, which immediately improved riding comfort. It was a pity that we had planned only one night in Serbia. Even after just a few hours in the country, it was clear that this place has enormous potential. Great roads, diverse landscapes, and a very distinctive, authentic atmosphere. It's definitely a country worth returning to, ideally for longer and without rushing. Serbia has a difficult and turbulent recent history. The Balkan Wars of the 1990s, the breakup of Yugoslavia, and the NATO bombings in 1999 are still clearly present in people's awareness and in the urban landscape. In many places, you can still see traces of those events: damaged or abandoned buildings, monuments, and memorial sites. This makes traveling through Serbia not just a motorcycle ride, but also a quiet lesson in history. At the same time, Serbia is a country of contrasts. On one hand, the heavy experiences of the past; on the other, open and straightforward people, excellent food, strong coffee, and rakia, which often appears sooner than you might expect. This raw but sincere atmosphere leaves a powerful impression. After Niš, due to the fairly late hour, we decided to take the A1 motorway towards Serdulica to make up distance more quickly. It's also worth noting that Serbia has excellent quality motorways, at least the ones we rode on. Smooth asphalt, good infrastructure, and steady traffic made the ride genuinely pleasant and hassle-free. At one of the fuel stations, we settled on a plan for the night: a wild camp by Lake Vlasina. Unfortunately, by the time we reached the spot, it was already completely dark. I pitched my tent, while Mariusz made use of a hunter's lookout tower as his sleeping place, which added a slight survival vibe to the whole situation. After quickly setting up camp, we prepared a delicious dinner outdoors, and, exhausted after a full day of riding, went straight to sleep without any unnecessary fuss. In the morning, we were greeted by rain, so there was no choice. We had to stay put a bit longer. I waited out the downpour in my tent, while Mariusz took shelter under the lookout tower. A rainy campsite morning has its own atmosphere, but the rain definitely takes the edge off any eagerness to get back on the road quickly. Once the rain finally stopped, we packed up, fully aware that the tent would be riding with us still wet. There was no point in waiting any longer. More kilometers and new countries lay ahead. We set off toward North Macedonia. At the border with North Macedonia, we met a motorcyclist from Greece who was riding exactly the same bike as me, a Volge DS 900X. We stopped for a moment, had a short chat, and quickly exchanged experiences about the motorcycles, riding impressions, and setup preferences. These kinds of encounters on the road are always the best. Complete strangers, yet a shared passion instantly creates a connection. After a brief stop, we continued toward the capital of North Macedonia, Skopje, ready for the next stage of our Balkan adventure. We decided to explore Skopje starting with the old Turkish bazaar. This place immediately pulls you in with its atmosphere. Colorful, loud, and full of life, completely different from the modern part of the city. The narrow streets were packed with dozens of small shops, workshops, and stalls. What stood out in particular was the sheer number of gold shops. Jewelers lined up almost door to door, further emphasizing the oriental character of the area. During our walk, we took a short break and tried freshly squeezed orange juice. Simple, refreshing, and perfect in the heat. Exactly what we needed after a long day of riding. We also decided to try local Macedonian specialties. On the table appeared simple but very filling dishes. Meat served in flatbread, fresh vegetables, tomatoes, lettuce, cucumbers, along with pepper-based spreads and sides typical of Balkan cuisine. There was also a bean dish in a thick sauce and grilled meat, served in a classic no-frills style. Everything was hearty, satisfying, and full of flavor. Exactly the kind of food that tastes best after a full day of sightseeing and riding. The old bazaar in Skopje made a really great impression on us, and turned out to be the perfect introduction to further exploring the city. Skopje's city center is full of contrasts. On one side, there is the old Turkish quarter, with its bazaar, mosques, caravanserais, and narrow streets. On the other, a modern, and at times almost monumental, part of the city. What stands out most are the numerous monuments and neoclassical buildings created as part of the Skopje 2014 project. Massive columns, fountains, and structures styled after antiquity dominate this area and spark strong emotions. Some people are impressed, while others are highly critical. One of the city's symbols is the stone bridge over the Vardar River, which connects the old and the new parts of Skopje. Another important landmark is the Kale Fortress, towering above the city and offering great views of the surrounding area. An interesting fact is that Skopje was almost completely destroyed by a powerful earthquake in 1963, after which it was rebuilt with the help of international architects, including teams from Japan. Skopje is a city full of contradictions, with history written into its walls, Oriental and European at the same time, old and new. Chaotic, yet precisely because of that, deeply authentic and well worth visiting. From Skopje, we headed toward Lake Ohrid, where we had planned to spend the night. We covered a good portion of the route on the A2 motorway to make up distance efficiently, but very often we veered off onto local roads. We wanted to see Macedonia as it really is, unhurried and away from the main highways. Passing through smaller towns, it was easy to notice just how culturally diverse the country is. In one such town, the abundance of mosques stood out, slender minarets rising above the low-rise buildings, visible from almost every corner. These detours off the main route offered far more than a quick motorway drive. They allowed us to feel the true atmosphere of Macedonia, glimpse the daily life of its people, and understand just how different this country is from the rest of Europe. Upon arriving at Lake Ohrid, we found a fantastic campsite, located literally on the water's edge. We couldn't have wished for a better spot to spend the night. Without hesitation, we went for a swim in the lake to wash off the dust and fatigue from the day's ride. The lake itself was breathtaking. Crystal clear water, a calm surface, and mountains reflected in it. Interestingly, Lake Ohrid is one of the oldest lakes in Europe, estimated to be several million years old, and is listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's home to many endemic species of plants and fish that aren't found anywhere else in the world. After our swim, we set up our tents, and as the sun began to set, we headed to the on-site bar at the campsite for some tasty local beer. A peaceful evening by the lake, great vibes, and the sounds of nature made it one of those moments that remind you why you travel so far. In the morning, we left the campsite, bidding farewell to Lake Ohrid, bathed in the golden light of dawn. From the very start, we rode along a picturesque route by the shore. On one side, the calm, glassy water. On the other, the rising mountains. And the whole atmosphere invited a slow pace, urging us to savor every twist and turn. Along the way, we passed a few small touristy villages with low buildings, guest houses, and little eateries right on the lakeside. Everything looked idyllic and summery, as if time here flowed a little slower. Just past Trapezka, Kalimoto guided us onto road P504, leading through Galicica National Park, situated between Lake Ohrid and Lake Prespa. There was a small entrance fee, but the first few kilometers already proved it was worth a few euros. The road gradually climbed, and with every curve, it revealed increasingly stunning panoramas of the lake and surrounding mountains. Winding up the serpentine road, it felt like the views became more and more spectacular. Below, the blue expanse of Lake Ohrid reflected the sky. And beyond it stretched layers of mountains, creating a multi-layered, almost cinematic landscape that stays etched in memory for a long time. Adding to the atmosphere were paragliders, soaring below us, taking full advantage of the perfect conditions and air currents. Watching them from above, it felt as if the entire landscape had its own rhythm. We kept stopping to take photos. It was impossible to ride this stretch without frequent pauses. Interestingly, the road through Galicica National Park runs very close to the Albanian border, and from the highest points, on a clear day, you can see both lakes at once, Lake Ohrid and Lake Prespa. It's one of the few routes in this part of Europe with such a unique perspective. As we began descending, the landscape changed, but it did not lose any of its charm. Gradually, Lake Prespa came into view, calm, expansive, and just as beautiful, though completely different in character. It was yet another moment that confirmed this part of Macedonia is an absolute gem for motorcyclists. We were tired, but genuinely happy, knowing this was not the end of our journey, with new adventures in Albania and Greece awaiting us. That moment of reflection, when you're thoroughly exhausted, yet completely satisfied with the ride, stays with you for a long time. Heading down, we followed road R1307 toward the Stenya border crossing, where we planned to enter Albania. The route took us through wild, almost untouched landscapes, far from civilization and heavy traffic. We can say with full certainty that this was the most beautiful route we rode in North Macedonia. Perfect pavement, fantastic curves, and ever-changing views with every kilometer made us regret only one thing, that we couldn't ride it even longer.